something truly resonates with me, I'm fascinated with it. And I just want to, I want to get to know that person. I want to get to know that circumstance, or, traverse that landscape, especially when I'm trying to navigate really difficult situations. I have a way of kind of, I don't know, have you ever watched those detective stories or series on TV where the character, I'm talking about in the past, not currently, but on TV, and the character would be looking through the phone book for a certain detective or something, and it would just light up, it would glow, like it would the camera would like skew to the phone book, and the specific name or number would come into focus, right? I guess that's how it happens for me. It's kind of organic. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah. It can't be forced. There's this Taoist belief that when you stop playing the host, you learn to become the guest of a much greater experience. And so that's the kind of thing where, the people that are meant to be in your life, and the people, who make things enjoyable, that happens. There's a flow to that. And that's why I've just become really sensitive now when I feel like someone's competing with me, or if someone is, if someone is, really trying to shout to be heard when they have the space to listen, when they have the space there to be themselves and to listen, you feel that the flow gets interrupted. And, it's the kind of thing, I think that's what we're here to learn too, from a spiritual perspective. I think we're here to learn how to navigate those kinds of emotions as well too, so that we can tap into that flow a little bit more.
And I think as we're transitioning with the advent of all of the current societal issues that we're facing, I think it's going to become more important, because we're going to learn to have to be more at peace with ourselves, be more at peace, and more hypersensitive and aware of environmental influences in our lives. And when as things trickle in into our our little bubbles, and other people's energy that may be competitive, yes, it can interrupt. However, in small doses, it can be good as well. However,
absolutely,
your only true competition is yourself, within yourself, and the barriers that you have within yourself. And that's what that's the truth that I've had to come to terms with, is regardless of not paying attention to what's outside of me, but more what's inside of not paying attention to what's outside, but more of what's inside of me, right? That's holding me back.
Yep. That's the trick. That is it. And that is a high attainment, Amelia. That is a high attainment, to recognize that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just had a really different, I guess, I could tell stories for days on my wild experience as a child, latchkey kid growing up in LA, and but but as a whole, I'm so grateful for all of it, and I've learned so much. Like, I learned how to make an itinerary from Joan Rivers.
Oh wow! Tell me that story.
Okay. Well, in my 20s, I worked as a manicurist at Umberto's salon in Beverly Hills. And I did house calls quite often. And Joan Rivers, I had an exclusive list for house calls, and it was really fun but Joan Rivers was one of them. And I used to go to her house and give her a manicure pedicure, and she was an absolutely delightful lady. So brilliant, so smart, so alive, just so present.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought she was the greatest thing.
That's great. That's great.
Not necessarily by her shows that she did, but her presence, just getting to meet her and go to her house. I think even Melissa Rivers used to live upstairs, and she used to watch game shows. I only met her briefly, like very, very briefly. Her and I just met in passing, but she taught me about itineraries, because one time I came over to meet her at her house, and I was a little bit late. There was some Los Angeles traffic, and she showed me her itinerary and her time.
Oh, wow.
And, how time is very important. And, that we need to respect each other's time, and how to make an itinerary. And she did she get me a book? I can't remember. This was in my 20s, okay, you guys? But yeah, she made me a time schedule, and she was a little annoyed with me, and it was fine, but I learned about an itinerary, and that's how I learned about how to keep a schedule.
Wow, what a powerful story too, to kind of anchor that, that lesson, that life lesson. But that's really neat. It's the kind, those are the kinds of human stories about more, we think of celebrities, and that's the thing, when they have the spotlight on them all the time, I kind of think of the spotlight as blinding, and, sometimes when that spotlight's in your eyes, you can't really see what kind of facial feedback or body language feedback that the audience is giving you, and that can be blinding sometimes, and it can be really disconcerting. So we catch these celebrities, a lot of the times at their moments of sensitivity, and the media, especially social media, likes to jump on that and take apart character that kind of escalates. It escalates that feeling of isolation. So when you tell me stories like that, I love hearing stories about that where the humanness of the celebrity is expressed, and I think I think that's where we really, really all want to get to. We want to get to a place where we're really, giving and connecting, and I like that story. I like hearing how. Especially someone like Joan Rivers, who, was kind of controversial, especially when she was alive. Hearing how she gave to you, how, there was that connection there, and that's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if people recall her talk show, and she had that famous French manicure. That was me. Mm-hmm. I was the manicurist who did that for her.
Oh, wow. That is cool. That is cool. Very good. Very good.
I got my manicure. My mother was married 6 times growing up, and when I was adopted when I was 8, and by my stepfather, who was he created the circuit boards for Microsoft. He worked for NASA, and then he created circuit boards, and he had a prosperous company in Agoura. And then, my other stepfather had an international marketing company in Beverly Hills, and on Beverly Drive for a long time, and I absolutely adore him. And I want to say names, but I'm not going to. But I worked at his office a little bit, and helped out and sat in on meetings, and then so they adopted me when I was 8, and that created some animosity with family and stuff like that, because they were both very well off, and my biological family, unfortunately, they're just was different. Okay. So but I had this exposure to learn so much, and I guess that's what's sort of accumulated and cultivated into the Porthole to Justice, the Window to the Truth, Orchid Freak Feel Unique, and Social Media News Network, and all of these things that I encompass and I encourage within other people around me, has come from some really great guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what comes up for me too, especially when considering you had stepfathers and you had male figures in your life that were successful. One of the things that I as a man have been exploring in groups with other men as well too, is that that climbing that social ladder or that socioeconomic ladder to the top, you have to be able to practice empathy to be able to get there. But once you get to the top and you're kind of like your own boss and all that, there's been a lot of studies now that show that when you are kind of powerful and you've found your role in life, sometimes you don't have to be as empathetic anymore. So then, that's when the sociopathy, the acquired sociopathy starts to creep in. And that's something I'm curious about because it's the kind of thing like I can have this
recipe. Is that, I mean, I realize it's an old sort of paradigm. Is that a recipe for longevity, though?
Is sociopathy a recipe for longevity?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question, and that is something I would really like to explore because it's the kind of thing where I can have this conversation. I mean, I'm kind of I've lived in poverty. I've been homeless before. It's the kind of thing where I can have those empathetic conversations with people in the middle class and the working class. But when you get into that wealthy class, that upper class, it's hard to have those conversations and to talk about the fact, the evidence, I should say, of that empathy starting to being shut down. And that's a conversation I would really like, I would like to invite without judgment, again, creating and cultivating those safe space that does power. When you have power, and we explore this all the time, Amelia, with trafficking and people who do have power, behind the scenes, kind of pulling the strings. Is power really kind of like a form of brain damage, where those empathetic muscles start to shut down? Those are some of the conversations I would really like to.
Is it something that
invite.
Is it something that is sustainable throughout even old age? I don't mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off. I was kind of winding down my thought there, though. But that's the conversations I would like to invite from people in all social classes. I think it's really intimidating because there is that mantra out there where the 99% have had enough. Yes, we're tired of competing. We're angry. We're frustrated. We're at each other, and it's almost like that creates a hostile environment for those who are wealthy. Because one of the catchphrases I hear all the time now is "eat the rich." And it can be very scary and intimidating.
And then the people want to be satisfied. Their appetite wants to be satisfied, and they want to see people like Harvey Weinstein come down, and that creates a whole nother dynamic. And so I think that I don't know if it's necessarily necessary as we move forward into this new paradigm online, on the internet. And so before we conclude, or let's go into the latter half of this section. I'm gonna have you back on this show again.
No problem.
We can talk and go into this more because I would like to talk about that more in depth. But with the karmic margin call, you and I have talked a lot about the project and the people that you work with. I've attended some of the meetings and how we want to proceed with the Karmic Margin Call project. We were talking about perhaps maybe there's like a guild, or there's like the guild for entertainment, but
Mm-hmm.
now there is this whole